The rope slipped from her hands before she felt the rein. The horse did not move. He stood still in the mud of the auction yard, head low, as if he understood what was about to happen. Leon did not cry. Her fingers tightened in the black mane of the only living thing that had stayed beside her when everything else fell apart. The bell would ring soon. Once it rang, the bidding would begin, and she would no longer belong to him. Fort Yuma smelled of wet dust and livestock that morning. October rain rolled across the desert in thin gray sheets, turning hard earth into slick clay. Men gathered beneath the wooden awning, hats pulled low, boots caked in mud. They watched, not her. The horse, he was strong, deep chest, clean legs, dark bay coat that shone even under a dull sky, worth money. That was all that mattered here. Leon pressed her forehead against his neck. Her black hair, braided tight down her back, was damp from the rain. The woven Hanfu-style tunic beneath her worn brown coat clung to her shoulders. Mud soaked the hem. Her boots were cracked from too many months of walking. She did not look like someone who owned anything valuable. That was why she had to let him go. Her father had died in July. Fever took him fast. Debt moved faster. The small ranch outside town was gone within weeks. The bankmen did not shout. They did not threaten. They simply counted numbers and handed her papers. Numbers always win. She had kept one thing, the horse. She had raised him since he was 2, trained him with her father in quiet mornings before the sun burned the hills white. He knew her weight, her voice, her breathing. Now she was about to sell him to strangers who would never speak his name the way she did. A man cleared his throat behind her. Miss Leon, Henderson, the stable owner. His voice carried weight but no cruelty. The buyers are here. She nodded once. No trembling, no begging. The bell rang. Men stepped forward. $50, $60, $70. Each number struck like a stone dropped in still water. Leon kept her eyes on the ground. Then another voice cut through the rain. 80. The yard went quiet. She looked up. He stood at the edge of the crowd, tall, broad shoulders beneath a dark duster coat. Black hat tilted just enough to keep the rain from his eyes. Sun-browned skin, clean jaw, calm stance, not loud, not showy, but steady. 90, he added, as if correcting himself. Murmurs rippled. The horse was worth 80 at best. Henderson hesitated, then lifted his hand. 90 once. No one answered. 90 twice. Silence. Sold. The bell rang again. It was over. Leon's hands dropped from the mane. She stepped back. The cowboy walked toward her. His boots sank slightly in the mud, but his pace never changed. When he stopped in front of her, he removed his hat. Up close, his eyes were light brown, almost gold. He did not look at the horse first. He looked at her. You trained him, he said. It was not a question. Yes. Good hands, he replied quietly. She waited for him to take the reins. He did not. Instead, he handed Henderson the money, all $90. Then he turned back to her. What is his name? Shan, she answered. The cowboy nodded once. Shan stays with you. Her brows tightened slightly. I sold him. You sold him to me. His voice was even. And I need someone who knows him. Rain dripped from the edge of his hat. She studied him carefully. Men did not spend $90 on a horse only to hire the former owner. You want a stable girl? I want a housekeeper. The words came direct. My cook left last month. My ranch house is a mess. I need someone steady, someone who does not break when things get hard. The rain slowed. Leon did not blink. I do not beg, she said calmly. I do not offer charity, he replied. Room board, $30 a month. You care for the house. You care for Shan. She searched his face for mockery. Found none. Why? She asked. He paused, not long. Because I watched you stand here in the rain without asking anyone to save you. His hand rested lightly on the reins. And because I would rather give work than watch good people disappear. Her breath shifted slightly. Fort Yuma had not been kind to a Chinese woman alone. Whispers followed her, doors closed faster. But this man stood in front of everyone and offered her work without lowering his voice. If I refuse, she asked. You walk back into town alone, no pressure, no threat, just truth. And Shan, she said. He looked at the horse, then back at her. He belongs to me on paper, a small pause, but out there, he gestured toward the open desert beyond the yard. He belongs to you. The words settled between them, firm, unembellished. Something inside her chest loosened for the first time in months. Henderson shifted awkwardly. So Miss Lyon, she straightened. Rain had nearly stopped now. The clouds thinning above the desert. She stepped forward and took the reins again. I will work, she said quietly. The cowboy nodded once. Good. What is your name? She asked. Cade Thornton. She inclined her head slightly. I will gather my things. Be ready in 1 hour, he replied. He stepped aside, giving her space. No reaching, no touching, only expectation. As she walked toward town, mud clinging to her boots, she did not look back. Not at the crowd, not at the yard, not at the life she had nearly lost. The rain stopped completely. Sunlight broke through the clouds in thin gold lines across the desert. And for the first time since her father's death, Leon did not feel like something was being taken from her. Something had shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady. like a door opening quietly. Behind her, Cade adjusted the saddle on Shan with practiced hands. His gaze followed her retreating figure down the road. He had not planned this morning, had not meant to spend $90. But sometimes a man recognizes something worth more than money. And sometimes in the middle of loss, the future walks in wearing a black hat and speaks in a calm voice. 1 hour later, they would ride north together, neither of them knowing that the decision made in a muddy auction yard would shape the rest of their lives. The ranch did not greet her. It measured her. The road north turned from mud to hard red earth within a mile. The rain had washed the sky clean, leaving sharp light over rolling hills. Shan moved beneath her with familiar strength. Cade rode slightly ahead, quiet, alert, as if even empty land could surprise him. They spoke little. He pointed once toward a distant line of cottonwoods. Water runs there in winter. She nodded. The ranch came into view near sunset. Low adobe house, wide porch, barn and corral set in a square. Smoke drifted from a crooked chimney, nothing grand but solid. Men stepped out from the bunkhouse when they rode in, American faces, sun-cut and watchful. Hands paused mid-task. No one laughed. No one called out. Cade dismounted first. "This is Lion," he said evenly. "She runs the house now, that was all. No explanations, no apologies." The men tipped their hats. One older man with silver in his beard held her gaze a second longer than the others, then nodded once, respectful. Shan was led to a fresh stall. Leanne watched until the gate closed. Cade noticed. "He'll be fed before any of us," he said. She gave a small nod. Inside, the house smelled of stale grease and dust, dishes stacked, boot prints across the floor, a chair broken near the wall. Leanne stepped into the kitchen without comment. She removed her coat, rolled up her sleeves. "Where's the water pump?" she asked. "Back corner," Cade replied. She carried 2 buckets without waiting for further direction. Cold water stung her fingers as she hauled it up. By the time darkness settled, the kitchen floor was scrubbed. The table cleared. A pot of beans simmered slowly with salt pork and onion. Cade stood in the doorway watching her move, efficient, quiet, not once asking for praise. "You worked all day," he said. "So did you," she answered. He stepped forward and pulled out a chair. "Sit." She did not hesitate. They ate in silence at first. Steam rose between them. After several bites, he set down his spoon. "You lock your door at night," he said plainly. "There is one at the end of the hall." "I know how to protect myself," she replied. "I expect that." A brief pause. "But I would rather no one test it." The oil lamp flickered. Wind brushed the outer walls. "You have rules?" she asked. "Yes." He leaned back slightly. "No gambling in my house, no liquor inside. No man crosses that hallway without my permission." She met his eyes steadily. "And me? You work hard, you speak direct. You do not bow your head for anyone here." His voice remained calm. "Not even for me." Something shifted in the air. She studied him carefully. "Why does that matter?" "Because men talk," he said. "And I do not want you thinking you owe me something." Her spine straightened. "I owe you wages for a horse. You owe me nothing." His tone carried final weight. After supper, she cleaned the dishes alone. He remained on the porch, boot heels resting on wood. A cigarette burned slow between his fingers. Later, in the small bedroom at the back of the house, she closed the door and turned the lock once. The bed was firm, the sheets clean. Through the window she could see the outline of Shan in the corral. She slept lightly. At dawn she rose before the rooster called. Fire started, coffee boiled, biscuits formed with steady hands. When the ranch hands entered, they stopped short at the sight of a clean table. The older man with silver beard removed his hat again. "Mom." She inclined her head, no smile, but not cold. Cade entered last. He looked at the stove, at the bread, at the organized shelves. His mouth curved slightly. "Good," he said. The days found rhythm quickly. She mended curtains, pulled weeds from a dying garden, sorted ledgers left scattered on a desk. Once she discovered unpaid invoices shoved beneath a stack of newspapers. She placed them neatly in order. Cade noticed. "You read numbers well." "My father did not," she replied. He did not ask more. One afternoon she stood in the corral brushing Sean's coat. Cade leaned against the fence. "You ride tomorrow," he said. "For what reason?" "To see the land." She continued brushing. "Land does not change. It does when you claim it." She stopped, turned. His eyes were not on the horse. They were on her. "You plan to claim me too?" she asked quietly. He did not smile. "I plan to give you space." A beat passed. "Out here, people will speak." "I have heard worse," she said. "That does not mean I will allow it." He stepped closer to the fence. "If any man disrespects you, he answers to me. And if you do?" The question hung sharp between them. He stepped fully upright. "You walk away." Wind moved through the grass. No laughter, no teasing, just truth laid flat. That night, as she folded clean linens, boots sounded on the porch faster than usual. Voices followed. Low, uneasy, she stepped into the hallway. Cade entered, jaw tight. Behind him stood 2 ranch hands and a stranger. "Well-dressed," one man muttered. The stranger's eyes landed on her. Stayed there too long. Cade shifted slightly, blocking her view. Mr. Wallace, he said coolly, you are far from town. The banker smiled thinly. I heard you brought new company to your ranch. Silence pressed against the walls. Leon did not move. Cade's voice remained steady. She works here. Wallace's gaze flicked to her again. I am sure she does. The insult floated unfinished. Cade took one step forward. Boot heel struck wood. You came for cattle contracts, he said. You can discuss them outside. Wallace hesitated, then laughed softly. Of course. He tipped his hat toward Leon without lowering his eyes. Mom. She did not bow, did not look away. When the men stepped back outside, the door closed with controlled force. Leon remained standing in the hall. Cade returned a moment later. Are you all right? I have been stared at before. His jaw tightened. That ends here. She held his gaze. Control your land, she said quietly. I will control myself. For a long second, neither moved. Then he nodded once. Outside, thunder rolled faintly beyond the hills. And inside that house, something unspoken grew sharper than the storm gathering in the distance. The storm broke after midnight. Wind struck the house hard enough to rattle the shutters. Rain slammed sideways against the walls. Lightning split the hills into brief white shapes. Leanne was already awake. She had felt it building for hours. Boots hit the porch. Voices shouted across the yard. She stepped into the hallway just as Cade came through the door, soaked, hat gone. River's rising, he said. North fence won't hold. How many cattle? Too many. He reached for a lantern. Stay inside. She did not answer. By the time he turned back, she was already pulling on her boots. You told me to claim the land, she said evenly. I cannot do that from a window. For a second, he looked ready to argue. Then lightning flashed again. He handed her the spare slicker. They rode into rain so thick it felt solid. Shan moved strong beneath her, steady even as mud sucked at his hooves. Cade rode ahead, guiding them toward the creek that cut through the northern boundary. Water roared where dry ground had been hours before. Fence posts leaned, wire snapped loose. Cattle bellowed, packed tight near the bend. Push them east, Cade shouted over thunder. She did not waste breath answering. She rode wide, cutting the edge of the herd, turning the first few with careful pressure. Shan responded instantly, sliding through mud with clean footwork. Lightning struck somewhere beyond the hills. The sound cracked like gunfire. One young steer broke toward the open gap in the fence. Without hesitation, Leon leaned low over Shan's neck and drove forward. Mud splashed high. Cold water soaked her legs. She cut the steer off before it reached the breach, wheeled him back into the group. Cade saw. His eyes held something fierce in the brief light. The creek rose another inch. Now, he called. Together they pressed the herd east, away from the collapsing fence line and toward higher ground. The work was brutal, rain blinded, wind shoved sideways. Twice Shan slipped, but Lion kept her weight balanced, breathing steady, voice low against his ear. By the time the cattle reached safer ground, dawn had begun to thin the storm clouds. The worst had passed. Water still rushed through the creek bed, but the herd held together. Cade rode up beside her. Mud streaked his jaw, hatless, hair plastered to his forehead. You could have stayed inside, he said. You could have hired someone else, she replied. For a long moment, neither spoke. The world smelled of wet earth and sweat and storm. You are not my housekeeper, he said finally. She studied him. No, you are my partner. The word did not come soft. It landed solid. She did not smile, but her shoulders lowered slightly. They rode back to the ranch in silence. The men were already gathering tools to repair the northern fence. No one questioned why she had been out there. They had seen. Later, inside the house, she wrung water from her sleeves near the stove. Cade stood across the table from her, hands braced on wood. I am not offering charity, he said again. I know. I am not offering protection because you are weak. I know. His eyes held hers. I am offering something else. The fire snapped in the hearth. What? She asked quietly. A future, not rushed. Not heated, just direct. You can leave, he continued. Take your wages, take Shan, start somewhere else. She stepped closer. Rain still tapped lightly against the windows. And you? She asked. He did not blink. I stay. A pause stretched between them, long enough for choice to settle. You said he belongs to me on paper, she said softly. He does, and you? He inhaled slowly. I belong wherever I choose. She lifted her chin slightly. And what do you choose? Outside, sunlight began to cut through the last of the storm clouds, turning wet grass gold. Inside, the firelight caught the edge of his jaw. You, he said. No grand speech, no promises dressed in poetry, just the word. She stepped closer until only the table separated them. You choose carefully, she asked. Every day? She moved around the table, stopped in front of him. Her hand lifted once, not to cling, not to tremble, just to rest against his chest. Strong heartbeat beneath damp fabric. I do not need saving, she said calmly. I know, I do not bow, I know, I do not stay where I am not respected. His hand came up slowly, covering hers. You will not bow here. Silence wrapped the room, no thunder now, no wind, only steady breathing. Then, without ceremony, he leaned forward. Not claiming, not demanding, asking. She did not step back. The first touch was brief, careful, like testing solid ground after a flood. When he pulled away, his forehead rested lightly against hers. "Marry me," he said. Not a question. Not an order, a statement of intent. "You are certain?" she asked. "Yes. You understand I will stand beside you, not behind. Yes, you understand I will argue when you are wrong." A flicker of something almost amused crossed his face. "I expect it." The corner of her mouth moved slightly, then she nodded once. Yes, outside. Shan stamped in his stall, shaking off the last of the storm. Inside, Cade's hand tightened just enough to hold, not restrain. The decision had not been made in the auction yard. It had been made in the mud and thunder, in the way they had ridden side by side, in the way neither had stepped away. Later, when the men repaired the fence and the ranch settled back into its rhythm, nothing outward changed. The house remained simple, the land remained hard. But something had shifted beneath it all. Not loud, not dramatic, steady, like a fence post driven deep into earth that would not give. That evening, as the sun sank over wet